The sanctioned psyker Root was crouching in the angle of the trench. He kept his head low. The air above him sizzled with ozone. Last bolts hissed as they hit the snow, and the bark of bolters was constant. His pistol remained holstered. His fingers tensed and stretched. He felt the power ready within him. "Where is your faith?" Ivan hissed. His mentor was just behind him. "In the Emperor," Rhett said. He could feel them coming towards him. Cadians were backing down the trench, their last rifles at their shoulders, ready. Suddenly, they flew backwards, mass reactive shells jerking their bodies like marionettes. The ice walls dripped with gobbets of human flesh. There was wet on Root's face. He wiped it off, saw blood on his sleeve. He had seen worse. "Ready?" Root said. Ivan nodded. "Right," Root said. "Let's go for it." The sanctioned psyker stepped forward. Down the stretch of the trench, a black and white armored space marine was striding towards him. The trench reached only as high as his abdomen. In one fist, he carried a massive bolter, a dripping chain axe in the other. The blade buzzed as he came towards Root. The look of the enemy was like that of a lion on its prey, taking in all that it needs to know in an instant. It lifted its bolt gun and pressed the trigger down long enough for 3 mass reactive bolts to fire. The spent brass shells flew left across the path of the Space Marine as the bolter exploded. It had just taken a finger of Root's psychic force to plug the barrel of the bolt gun. It was a trick he'd used before. Surprise gave him a moment's advantage. The Space Marine kept striding forward. If he was at all perturbed, he did not show it. He casually dropped his bolter, drew his bolt pistol, gunned his chain axe to full, and accelerated into a run. Root braced his feet into the trampled ice. He envisaged a fist of steel in the air about him. He put up a hand, closed his eyes, and sent that fist straight towards his foe. His power propelled it forward as his breath of wind will lift a feather in the air and carry it along. It hit the renegade full in the chest, went straight through the power armor, bone, and one of its hearts, came out the other side, and buried itself 30 feet into the ice. Root felt its power. He opened his eyes and saw the chain axe descend. Root's blood sprayed over Ivan's face as the minder fell over himself in horror. The Space Marine turned and caught him by the foot. Ivan kicked and swarmed. He fired his lap pistol and hit. He must have hit, but the thing seemed immune, thrown. It had a fist-shaped hole through its chest. Ivan thrashed as the Space Marine dragged him up to its helmet and lifted him high enough to bring Ivan's face right up to the Space Marine's plate. "Are you frightened, little man?" The renegade hissed in a voice that was chillingly quiet. Ivan lost control of his bowels. How can you still be alive? He asked, staring at the gore that dripped from the hole in the thing's chest. Because I want vengeance, the Space Marine hissed with a sudden jerk of his power-armored fist. He snapped Ivan's neck. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. You like my headphones? They're very cute. I'm being all wooden and feet today. It's a vibe. Y'all, we're back in Minka Lesk. She's my love right now. I've been reading on this book for a long time. I be reading like 7 books at once. That's why I never finish one. I do finish them, but it takes a while. When I get into my Chinese novels, though, I really sink deep into those and don't come out until I'm done. But yeah, I've actually made it much. I've finished the first part. I'm just catching up with y'all. But we're still reading through those battles on Cadia. Cadia tried to stand. Cadia is falling fast. If you've not read Minka Lesk by Justin D. Hill, Minka Lesk of The Last White Shield, this is very akin to the style of writing in Dune. I keep comparing it to Dune, and I need to get back into reading Dune. I have so many video ideas, and yeah, but that's a good problem to have. I have content for years. It's written kind of in, at least right now, it's like in a vignette style. So you're looking at moments of time in this great battle that's going on. And it hops around to a lot of characters that you will only see for a few lines in the book and then they die. We know that Minka Lesk has plot armor because her name's on the book. And there's a couple of other characters that I'm pretty sure are going to make it at least for a while, if they don't make it all the way through the book. But you're looking at a bunch of moments that make up the whole. So when it comes to, military conflict, while there is a grander campaign at stake, there are individuals who are contributing on all sides to what the outcome's going to be. And each of those individuals has a story. And right now, I think that's what this opening book in the omnibus is it's helping us understand that while there are untold billions, maybe trillions in the empire of mankind, that each one of them has a story. Each one of them has a story that matters. That story may not matter to the emperor entombed on the golden throne, may not matter to a primarch, may not matter to the general, the commissar, the lieutenant, maybe not even the captain. But somewhere out there is someone who cared about that individual. They have a story. They have a family. They are a brother, sister, uncle, aunt, niece, nephew, parent. We're all those things. Like I think about all of the life titles that I have. I am a wife. I am a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a cousin. I'm an auntie. I'm a teacher. I am all of those things. And those things represent different connections in my life and connections to people that matter to me. And I think what Justin Hill is doing such a good job in this first part is helping us recognize that without each of those moments, the whole does not exist. One of the tragedies of the Warhammer universe is how easy it is to forget individuals. Individuals don't matter unless you have a purpose. But once that purpose is fulfilled, you go back to not mattering. And he's capturing these little stories. Remember what I love to say, fiction is a way to safely examine hard things. When we think about what's happening in modern times, and remember, she doesn't do politics. Not here. This is not the place. I'll talk about religion, not politics. I'm just talking world events right now. Think about the events going on our planet right now. There's a lot of stories happening. There are people who are victims of the wars and whims of heads of state. And there are people who can't scratch out a living because the government that they're under has created a world where they can't do that. There are people living their best life who have more money than God. There are people who are just living that middle class American dream. Not rich, not poor, comfortable. There are young people trying to figure out what they're going to do next in their lives. And there's married couples trying to figure out if they're going to make it or not. And so many other moments that matter. It's easy with all of us having moments in our lives to forget that we're not the only ones having moments. That out there are people who right now are saying goodbye to a loved one. Someone's getting the news that they lost their job. There's also someone embarking on their honeymoon right now. There's a baby being born right now. There are parents who haven't seen their children who've gone off to foreign theaters of war for a long time who are reuniting with their children today. All of that's happening at once. And while we can't know everyone's story, it's important to remember that everyone has a story. And your story matters. Your story is valuable. Your story is correct. And the fact that you exist makes your story matter. Because all of us add up to the whole. The tapestry of humanity would not be complete without you. And this novel has been a really good example of pulling back and knowing there's a bigger picture, but then intentionally zooming in. Let's take a look at this moment. Let's take a look at this person. Out of these, how many? 3,000 pages? Yeah, they only got a paragraph, but their paragraph had an impact. Their paragraph was a moment that should be remembered. You are a moment that should be remembered. In the grand scheme of human history, we all know each life is fleeting. We all only get a certain amount of years, and nobody knows the clock that is over our heads. That's why we have to make the most of the moments we have. Because everything that exists right now that we enjoy, it could go away tomorrow. There were people who woke up in California one day and they had their life, whatever it was, and then the next day they didn't because it literally burned to the ground. There are people who woke up with parents and they ended their day without them. But there's the flip side. There are people who found out today they got the job they wanted. There's a 16-year-old out there getting their first car. Someone's getting proposed to right now, and they're screaming and throwing their hands and freaking out. There's an artist creating something beautiful right now. Gather those moments. Cherish those moments. Because all of the moments that add up to what is you, they matter. And just think about what it takes for each one of us to exist. If the right people for the past however many thousand years didn't make the right combination of gene connections, I wouldn't exist. You wouldn't exist. A lot of couplings had to happen for each one of us to be here. That's amazing. You are so valuable. You were so important to be here that it was aligned that the right people would meet one another so that at this moment you could be here. For each of the moments that are represented here, a lot had to happen for each of the moments that people are having. Some of the moments are triumphant, some of the moments are tragic. But even if moments are tragic, they still matter because it adds up to the whole. Let's wrap this video moving on to another moment. Gruber's last stand. On the west side of the base, where the kitchen block met the sunken halves, the survivors of 15 regiments faced off against a horde of howling cultists and mech slaves that had been harvested from Agrippina's hive forges when the planet had been destroyed. The cultists charged barefoot across the ice and were mown down as they caught the lines of barbed wire. But they were just the first assault. Behind them came industrial mechanized slaves, pumped full of stems, their data coils replaced with a searing litany of heresy and chaos bile. It sent their lobotomized minds into a state of frenzy. A single platoon of Acadian shock troopers held the front trench. A Sons of Malice kill squad turned their flank, so they fell back to the Aegis defense line. The first line knelt as the second fired over their heads, and the third line reloaded. Their lieutenant had lost an arm on Cadia, but he'd taught himself to shoot left-handed. "First rank!" he shouted, and a salvo of shots stabbed out. "Second rank!" Again, the shots sliced into the enemy. "Third rank!" The mech slaves scrambled over the barbed wire. They leaped in front of the trench and charged towards the Aegis with all ferocity of arco-flagellants. The men held their line. "Fire at will!" The order went out when the mech slaves were 20 feet off, and the lieutenant lowered his bolt pistol and fired, hitting one in the chest and blowing its frail fractorum body apart. The first mech slave attacked the metal Aegis, its buzz saw throwing yellow sparks into the air. A las round to the heart stilled the things. But more of them were gaining the line. The Cadians were mowing the insane creatures down, but it was not enough. Even the wounded bounded and skidded on their own entrails. Only death could stop them. They came forward in a blizzard of razor scythes, forge hammers, and pain lashes. The line of Cadians held firm. Not one man flinched, even as the tide of mech slaves tore into them. And the first, second, and third lines disappeared in a spray of red. On the east side of the compound, the line erect Arvis lighters gave the heavy weapons teams a broad field of fire over the top of the trench and defense networks. Their elite Cadians drove the assault back 3 times, leaving a field of burning tanks and dying cultists. As the day wore on, the enemy withdrew, but none of the Cadians was fooled. The heretics had just been testing them. Now they knew their strengths and weaknesses. The Sons of Malice had bidden their time. They launched their assault under the cover of darks, the west side, right up to the lines of stacked containers. The heretic tanks mowed heavy weapons squads down beneath their tracks, while stragglers were cut down with chainsword and axe before last bolters drove them back. The surviving Cadians were pushed back toward the central hubs, where Gruber stood, sword in hand. We cannot hold, Loudnick shouted. His left arm was crudged in a sling, but he had drawn his chainsword. We will hold, Gruber told them. But he'd known that this moment would come. To me, he shouted, and gathered his carskin about him. In the darkness, last bolts flashed. Gruber marched out, bellowing the war cry. Cadia stands! The carskin shielded the body of General Gruber with their own. Their hell guns flashed a bright orange, but many of them were armed with plasma and melta. Their unerring aim punished the enemy. When the cultists charged, they were met with a wall of flame. The carskin held their ground as the fiercest made it to their line. There was a furious hand-to-hand struggle, a brutal combat decided by bayonets and knives, rifle butts and courage. After what seemed an age, the cultists withdrew, dragging their wounded with them. Have we won? Someone asked, confused. Gruber laughed. Not until we've killed the renegade Astartes. Until we meet them, there will be no victory. As dawn came, the survivors could see the cost of the night's fighting. Their western defenses had been overrun, the trenches filled with the bodies of their enemies. Gruber reorganized his defenses. The doorway of the central hub were barricaded, each room and window made defensible. The cultist attacks came again and again, interspersed with bombardments from space. The void shield lasted for 2 days before the generator overheated and there was nothing the tech priest could do. Then, the base was subjected to a maelstrom of lance and bombardment cannon. At the same time, waves of cultists charged against them. Mist rose as the bombardment melted the ice. When it seemed that there was nothing worse to come, the onslaught ended, and the handful of stunned and scattered survivors crawled out of the ruins of the hab block and trenches, looked skywards and saw, in all its terror and magnificence, another orbital assault. Chaos warbands that had been scouring the Agrippina sector flocked to Faith's anchorage, eager to take their share in the spoils. They all joined in the attack. They came in drop pods and thunderhawks, and more ancient craft of brass and black ceramite. There were warbands of the Sons of Slaughter, the Black Legion, Crimson Slaughter, and 5 other legions. This time, there was no counterfire. And the Hydra gun platforms were in ruin. The Bane blades had been destroyed. The survivors of Cadia, dead. The assembled warbands strode forward in their armor of black and brass, blue and gold, dripping red, black and white. They were here to witness and celebrate 10,000 years of struggle. It was a warrior from the Sons of Malice who singled General Gruber out. The Space Marine pointed with one hand, while from the other shoulder a black suckered tentacle flicked out like a twitch of an irritated feline. Cadian, he called out. It's not too late to run. Its tentacle made a gesture of taking in the assembled ring of Chaos Space Marines about them. We all started as you, defending the false emperor. If you renounce your vows, I will spare you. General Gruber stumbled to his feet. His voice was clear and strong. Despite the gashes that had been torn through his breastplate, he ignited his power sword as the dreadful monster strode towards him. Never! He shouted as he charged. So good. What does this teach us? Hey, I'm not going to debate right now if the emperor's good or bad. He's bad. But we all find ourselves to be the subjects of circumstances that are greater than us. No one who's in this war decided to be in this war. War came to them. Let's keep that in mind. These people didn't choose this. They were born on a planet, Cadia, that its only purpose was to keep back the maelstrom of hideous abnormalities that could pour out of the Eye of Terror. That's their purpose. They didn't ask for that purpose. They were given that purpose. The people that ask for it are long dead. They are the recipients of an abominable inheritance. And yet, even with the circumstances given in these moments, we're seeing people still try to be their best. If this is how I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out big time. I respect it. There's the lesson. None of us get to choose the life that's handed to us. But with the circumstances we're given, now what will you do? Will you just roll over? Or when you have agency and accountability and freedom, will you choose to make the best of what you have? I kind of want to reference King Theoden when he's going to take his armies out to meet the hordes of Uruk-hai and orcs. If it has to be the end, Aragorn tells him, because Theoden's like, they're all gonna die. There's so much death. I don't even know what to do. And Aragorn, with that encouragement, if it's got to be the end, then it will be such an end. This is an inspiring book. I hope you pick it up. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.